Hi, it's Joe Morgan with the Tech Leader Spotlight podcast, where we interview tech leaders to learn about their journey and leadership lessons learned along the way. This show is brought to you by the Tech Professional Money Operating System, where we help tech professionals who know they're doing well financially, but aren't certain if it's enough. And they want to make sure that they have the confidence they'll be able to do the things they want to do in life. We help you invest cash wisely. We make the most of stock awards, try to minimize your tax bill, and create clarity and confidence so you can spend less time worrying about your money and more time living the life you want. If you'd like more information, look me up on LinkedIn. That's Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life. Today, I'm very excited to have on the podcast Lauren Albert, who is a software development engineer at Amazon. She is an experienced leader who specializes in human-centered engineering leadership and helping people design thoughtful comebacks after career inflection points. Welcome to the podcast, Lauren.
Thank you so much. Great to be here, Joe.
So tell me about this human-centered engineering leadership and helping people design thoughtful comebacks after career inflection points. What does that phrase mean to you?
So, the first thing that comes to mind is when I say human-centered tech leadership, I think we, as engineers, we spend so much time in front of our computers, staring down code and other things. And it's first and foremost most important to remember that we are people first, and that the problems that we're solving ultimately have people on that side, and often the solutions come from working with other people. Um, so I highly value environments where people are connecting with each other, creating with each other, helping each other learn. So that's the first thing.
I'll just say I
Yeah.
love hearing that because I'm not in the tech world, right? I don't work in tech, but I use a lot of tech. So I am the customer, just like you guys are also the customer. But, you know, from my perspective, the usability of everything is definitely on an uptrend. The ability to actually use the technology for what it's for. So I'm glad you're working on that.
Good. It's the fun part, honestly. It's one of my favorite parts of working in the industry is when I know that I'm specifically solving a customer problem. It's just
Mm.
such a win.
Yeah, that's great. And then
Yeah.
did you have more to add on that?
That was the human-centered part, and then the comebacks after a career inflection point. My own story is, I'll give you the quick of it, is that I started software engineering in 2019. I'm a career changer. I was a musician and a teacher and a tall ship sailor and a zookeeper and all these things beforehand. And it was time to just go into a different industry. So, uh, graduated my boot camp in 2019. I became a TA for the program in the winter of 2020, and I'd gotten my first six-figure job offer. It was very exciting. I went from, making 40K tops as a tutor and landed like $105,000 offer.
Awesome.
And that was incredible, right? To make that switch. Then, as I was waiting for the paperwork to come in, COVID hit. And
Mm.
then I waited 3 weeks. And
Mm.
after those 3 weeks, the offer was rescinded.
Yeah.
And that was a big, like, oh no moment. I was living in New York City, um, running out of cash because I'd just been in a program. So it really pushed me to work for a job that felt over my head because those were the companies that were hiring at the time. And I ended up landing a role at Shopify. It's very exciting. When I say human-centered, like that was my experience
Mm.
there was that it was very human-centered. I loved it. It was
Mm.
a great first job. 2.5 years later, I got laid off and landed, went through the job search, very stressful, landed another role at a great startup and called Onify. And I'm really happy to say they're thriving today. But they had to make some adjustments along the way, and I got laid off.
Mm.
Uh, because of the the financial situation at the time.
Hmm.
Then I knew it was time to push myself even harder. Okay, you know, I want to know if I can make it in big tech, and my bank account really wants to know what that feels like. So I worked very hard to line up interviews at Meta, Amazon, Snap, and a number of other bigger names. And I ultimately ended up in at Amazon
It's so
after
awesome.
6 months. Yeah, it was I worked hard for that.
I bet you worked hard once you got there too.
I worked hard. Yeah, it's very hard. So from my story, and there's other like nuances in there, I love to help other people in those situations because I have a lot of compassion for it and
Yeah.
excitement for it. I have a lot of optimism, even in the roughest markets.
Yeah, no, that's great and well needed in the marketplace today. I have a little of that myself. I was laid off at one point in my career too. I think, you don't really go through a full career without experiencing something like that or being
Mhm.
close to it. So for those young people out there who are in that position, believe me, you're not alone.
It's a rite of passage at this point.
It
Yeah.
is, and it always seems to work out better in the long run, honestly. But
Hmm.
that doesn't sound real good when you're in the middle of it. Let's go to our first question. So, what does leadership in the tech space mean to you?
Um, f- for me, um, I think it's whatever scope I am currently most capable of, meaning like, if I'm a entry level engineer, the scope I can control at that point is more task oriented, right? So you can still be a leader within that scope. And leadership there is like, what are the principles that you are leading by? What do you value the most? Like, do you love to learn and are you good at it? And how can you like exemplify that to the other people around you? Um, how can you demonstrate outcomes from those principles? So other principles for me are like I'm very futuristic and I'm very iterative,
Mm,
and I really thrive in that kind of environment. Uh, and again, I love to share information. So I make it a point to highlight those skills and lead my team by, for example, AI adoption, right?
hmm
Like some engineers are like they kind of like are dragging their feet because they have reservations about it, understandably. But my strength is being optimistic and educated about that kind of future. So that's my form of leadership. And just to back up, I was talking about entry level engineering. Now I'm a mid level engineer. So, my scope is more project oriented, not just tasks. So within those projects, I can implement my principles of iteration and future thinking, and learning and communication,
mm,
uh, and make sure that I'm integrating that within my team, and then even stretching a little bit further to outside my team, other stakeholders. And actually, if I'm being really honest, is I'm looking outside of Amazon.
hmm
I want to be more of a leader as an entrepreneur. So yeah, I think
Yeah. So one of the things I hear coming through there is as a leader to bring yourself into the role, your personal feelings, your personal strengths, your personal, everything. So not all leaders are going to be the same. There's not like a general way to lead. It's more about bringing yourself into the role. Is that, am I hearing that right?
yeah, I think that's definitely my experience of it.
That's fantastic. I don't think we've had anybody mention that on the podcast yet. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh,
That's a
that's
really good
great.
one. Tell me, with all the job challenges out there in the market today, all the layoffs and things going on, what is a piece of advice you would give someone to help them create resiliency?
I love thinking about this. Um, so a piece of advice to create resiliency in I just learned a term yesterday that you might know because you're in finance. Um, um, we're in a wicked market. And I'd never heard that before. And my like very limited understanding of it at this time is that out there, this isn't an environment where you just go like apply to a ton of jobs and then get recruiter follow up and then interview. It doesn't follow
Right,
that traditional path. So,
right.
so I think first of all, understanding that that's not going to work is the first way to build some resiliency. Because if you then keep trying to bang your head against something that's just not working in this environment, you're not going to bounce back anymore. You're going to be exhausted and frustrated and angry.
Mm,
Um, so I think embracing, like accepting, really accepting how the market is going right now, and then um, building community around what you need next.
mm.
Like so many people are going through layoffs and transitions. So join groups of people who are going through that or have gone through it before and start iterating with them. Start creating ideas, start creating your solution and your roadmap.
I love that advice because um, I'm not, I don't consider myself to be a very good futuristic thinker, but if I really put on my futuristic hat and think about what's going on with AI, I see companies being smaller in the future. Like I see a lot of room for startup creativity or being a deep expert in an area and working for several different larger companies. There's just so many different things that are going to change in the way we work. So I love the advice of being open to that and growing your community in the right place, because you never know where the next opportunity will come from.
Absolutely. And I love the conversation about not knowing the way we will work too. Like if if you embrace that, then you can really tap into some very cool creativity. How like where's my next income source going to come from? It doesn't have to be a traditional anything. It doesn't have to be a traditional startup. It doesn't have to be a traditional main company. Um, maybe
Yeah.
that's not the stability that you want, but you might just have to create your own framework of stability.
Yeah, yeah. This idea of, finding a job description and applying and making it, I mean, that's going to be the black swan event. If anybody ever gets a job that way, then that's like a once in a lifetime thing. That's just not how it seems like it's going to work
Hmm.
going
Hmm.
forward.
Hmm.
Um, Tell me this, what is the most important financial decision you've made in your tech career, whether it's about compensation, equity, personal spending, where you're living, all of that stuff, or maybe even before the tech career, if there's something there.
Well, choosing to go into tech was a great financial choice.
Yeah, tell us
Uh,
about that.
yeah, say that I did a reverse retirement. Um, I even think I'll have some intermittent retirements throughout my life,
Hmm.
possibly, but I knew coming out of college that I wanted to kind of explore and I wanted to be creative and I didn't want to just like jump into a corporate job. And I let that unfold. And I had a lot of doubters along the way. And sometimes I doubted myself, but I definitely had like a core feeling like if I'm going to be a performing and recording musician, like lugging this 50-pound keyboard around, I'm probably not going to want to do that when I retire at, who knows, 60, 70.
You're right.
So I'm okay doing this now. And I lived within my means, which were pretty small at that point. And I paid $500 for, you know, living in like a community type environment in California. and that was fine. And then I was ready for, like the next level of I knew I wanted a family. I knew I wanted to live in New York City, and in order to do that, I had to have money.
Mm,
Yeah. So I literally saved $20,000 in cash in a shoebox
mm.
because I knew if it was in a bank account, I was probably going to spend it. I
Oh,
needed to
wow.
not see it. I
Yeah.
was I was a private tutor at the time. I was a piano teacher also, and that $20,000 got me, bought me my boot camp tuition.
Wow, that's amazing. But and so brave to make that change and invest that money and invest in yourself as well.
Absolutely, like very much worth that investment.
Yeah,
Incredible.
that's fantastic. Well, thanks so much for being on the podcast, Lauren. Really enjoyed having you.
Thank you too. That was really fun.
Great. So I appreciate your vulnerability and openness and sharing all the things you shared too. That was really, really good. So
Thank you, Joe.
thanks again.
Anytime.
Absolutely. So just as a reminder, this is sponsored by the Money Operating System, where tech leaders gain clarity and control of their finances so they can live out the rest of their life with intention. If you want to know more about us, look me up on LinkedIn. That's Joe Morgan at Best Financial Life.